Welcome back to Social Sessions, everybody. We are talking about virality today. We are talking about how to go viral, different strategies, why it's important, what it even means to go viral. And first, I want to say I used to shit on going viral a lot, and I just want to say normalize changing your mind, normalizing
Why did you shit on
deciding that. Because I mean, I still think there's some truth to it, but I would shit on it a lot because if you would go like super viral it would
it?
kind of skew your metrics for a while because you might gain a bunch of followers and then they might slowly trickle off if you are not making content that replicates that very first viral video. And I still think there's some truth to that, but I think it's a little bit more of a give and take in the sense of like there is good that comes with virality in the sense of like it gets people to your page, but I also think like having the expectations in going viral of like knowing that people are definitely going to trickle off,
Mhm.
um and just knowing that ahead of time because you can post a video and get a few million views, right? And I also, you know what, backtracking, I also think it's not the same, which we'll kind of go into. I People don't follow you as easily
No,
as they
as
used
they
to.
used
So
to.
I
Yeah.
think even 2 or 3 years ago, going viral, you could have one video get 5 million views and you could get like 1,500 followers from that.
Mhm.
Now, I feel like it's less likely. People might go look at your page and go, see what you have going on. But I don't think people are as easy to see one video and immediately follow you
Yeah, I agree.
you know but I do think just having that expectation of like a lot of the followers you're getting right now might not stick with you, and that's okay. That's not necessarily the purpose of going viral, the reason that your business should be trying that. um but yeah, normalize changing your mind. I'm not fully shitting on it anymore. I do think there's good that comes with it, obviously, but I do think it's different.
Yeah, I agree.
So we're just kind of going to jump into it. I don't really have any updates for you guys, any tips for you guys this week, and I don't really want to force it. I don't want to just talk to you guys about things that don't really matter. So, we don't really have a tip of the week, but I will say if that's like something that you do look forward to in this episode, we put social media updates and tips in every single newsletter that we send out. So if that is something that you want, you can sign up for the newsletter. That should be in the description. But yeah, we send out like at least 3 updates every week.
Yeah.
So, anyways, jumping into the topic, let's talk about is what does it mean to go viral? That sounds like a silly place to start because everybody's like, "Oh, I know what it means." But I think it's changed a lot. I think it's pretty subjective, right? Like I think if you're used to getting 200 views and you have a video that does like half a million, in your head you might be like, "I'm going viral." And I
Mhm.
actually tried to Google like what it actually, if there's like an exact number, and there's not. I think the general consensus, which was kind of interesting, the general consensus across the board was getting 5 million views in 1 week. That's what
Yeah.
they consider viral, and
Really,
then anything over that.
that's the scale you have to reach. 5 million.
Yeah,
That's a,
that's what a lot of these, that's what I'm saying. It's pretty subjective, but
yeah.
5 million and I thought it was interesting that they used a like time frame too. Like it
Yeah.
needs to pop off
Happen
in a certain amount
quickly.
of time. Yeah. Which I mean, I guess is kind of true because if you have a video that's been up for a year and it accumulates 5 million over a year, then you probably wouldn't consider it a viral video,
Yeah.
you know?
I think they're
But
harder to come by. I mean, I mean, very rarely do we hear about them. And usually those are the ones that turn into trends, right? Or something like that.
yeah. Well, so that's what I was going to say is virality is not as accessible as it used to be. I think
Mhm.
just due to the fact that so many more people are creating content,
Mhm.
right? The playing
No,
field is
it's gotten a
bigger,
lot
right? There's
bigger.
so much more content out there. There's so much more that people can
Mhm.
watch and consume. And I think even, I don't know, let's say 10 years ago, if you thought of a viral video, it was pretty safe to assume that everyone has seen that video. Like whoever the center of this video, they were going to be on Ellen. They were going to be like,
Yeah, they're
it was
going to Ellen.
everywhere. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I think of when I think of viral videos, I think of like the Apparently Kid. I think of the Damn Daniel kids and like
Mm.
the Brittany Broski. I have heard Brittany Broski talk about this actually, and she was like, I think I was one of the last pieces of viral content, like her kombucha meme,
Mhm.
which
Before
was
like
however many years ago. Yeah, I mean, it was just photos, or it was a video I think that people took screen grabs of, but that was like everybody had seen it. But that I don't feel like that really exists anymore. It's very rare that you will see that there's a video that
I think we
everybody
just
has
got
seen.
numb to it too a little bit. Like we just expect it now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, even like okay, so this is I was going to use this as an example, but the 50-part "Who the hell did I marry" story that has been I have not seen the actual TikToks, but oh my god, I've seen other people talking about it for the
Yeah,
last week. Like that's been like the biggest thing on social media for the last week.
yeah,
But even that, it's not like everybody's seen it. I think virality before was like it crossed platforms. It
yeah.
wasn't just like now that's very it feels rare that it's going to cross platforms. You know what I mean? Like this story time situation that's 50 parts probably isn't reaching people like on Facebook. It's probably not reaching people on YouTube. Like there's probably conversations about it, but the original
It's still,
videos because it's like 8 hours long is probably not reaching everybody. You know what I mean?
yeah, you have to go there to see it.
So I just think virality looks different now, and I think it looks different per person. You know what I mean? Like I just think, like I said, if you're used to getting a very small amount of views and then you have a huge jump to you, that could be
That's
going
viral.
viral. You know?
For me, that's going viral. I'm like been at like a six, a client could be at a certain number, and if they have one that goes above that, I'm like, this it's on his way.
Yeah, we're going viral. Yeah. So I think there's like I said, it's pretty subjective. It's not technically the people are saying 5 million, but if it's a big jump for you from what you're used to, then I think it's still a win. I also think before we jump into actually how to go viral and like tips on reaching, I should say tips on going viral is like a catchy phrase, but I think it's more like how to get more views and bring people to your page type of situation is really what these tips are. But I think it's also really important to understand how the algorithm works, specifically the TikTok algorithm. And it basically, we went over this last week briefly with the Roots marketing girls, but it pushes your content out to a small handful of users. And if it is received well by that small handful, if you're getting engagement or the watch time is pretty high, and it's just clear that these people are liking this content, then it's going to continue to push it out to other people, right? So that's really how the algorithm is working. That's how things are going viral because it's resonating with people pretty organically. Now, obviously, it's heightened if people start to share that content or repost it or send it to their friends however they want to share it, then it's just what's the word, speeds up the process basically. But I think it's important to kind of understand how that algorithm works before we jump into like ways to
To
get
get
more
there.
views, because at the end of the day you have to resonate with people. Like I want to be very, very clear in this. None of these tips are going to be quote unquote hacks
Yeah,
or like
they
quick
love
tips to
people.
get.
I'm so sick of that stuff. Like this is
Same.
how I
It
made
drives
this much
me
money. This is how I got this many followers in this amount of time. It's like, no, you didn't. Like, why are we
it
lying? Because we all
it
know, like,
drives me nuts because I was just talking to my friend about this yesterday, and I feel like they do this in every single industry. It's not even just social media, but it's people who have success with themselves most of the time, right? It's like
yeah,
they had their own personal account blow up, or they had like we were talking about the music industry. They had one song go viral, or like or even like in health, they lost 50 pounds. And suddenly everybody thinks they have credentials to tell everybody else how to do all of those things when it's like you
oh
had
yeah,
one success story. Are you even able to duplicate that? Like, I don't know. And the other
no,
thing that's frustrating about it is that, like, these social media people, too, are usually talking about tips to grow on socials, and those accounts just inevitably do better because
yeah.
everybody wants those
Wants to
tips.
know. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
It's
anyways,
it
none
gets,
of
it
these
gets
are
a
going to
little,
be like quick tips,
we don't do the quick tip thing.
cuz it's just not true. It's just like not realistic.
Yeah, and then you're setting yourself up
So,
for failure.
yeah, exactly. Um Okay, so now I want to, again, before we jump into the actual tips, I do want to talk about why it is important. Like I said, I used to shit on it a lot. I didn't really think it was something that was worth putting time into, but
Yeah.
I've kind of changed my viewpoint on it a little bit. And I think viral content is usually the reason that someone will find your page. It's very much top of the funnel, right? So if you I've said this a million times on this podcast. If you're only focusing on viral content, you're probably not going to get the results that you want, right? You're probably not going to get the sales and the things like that. You always have to have all of the aspects of the marketing funnel. But I will say the top of the funnel stuff is usually what's going to get people there. It's usually like viral content, influencer marketing, paid ads, things like that are usually that top of the funnel, which is what people love to talk about. And that's where a lot of the vanity metrics come from too, are usually these types of things. But like I said, there's definitely still a purpose to it, right? So you might have a video go viral, right? Let's say you get like 2 million views on this video. It's inevitably going to drive some of these viewers to your page, which now we get to the important part where there needs to be substance on your page that tells people who you are, what you do, what you offer, things like that. So that's where the importance of the pinned posts come into play. That's where the importance of just the rest of your content and the rest of the marketing funnel comes into play. Because if you are only focusing on viral content, it's usually not going to be clear what you do. So if someone goes back to your page, it's kind of just like a hodgepodge, and it's like, why would I'm confused
Oh
on
yeah,
what
oh
this
yeah.
is. Yeah. Um,
There's no
but
reason
it does
to
lead
go
people.
viral.
What was that?
There's no reason to try to go viral if your page doesn't give a better description like when they get there. It's just pointless.
Yeah. So I think before you start focusing on the amount of views you get, you have to have some sort of foundation there, right? Because hopefully one of your videos in the future does pop off and you do get more followers or you do get more views. You do need something for to be there, right? You need something to be on your
Yeah,
page.
yeah.
Otherwise, it's kind of like all of that was for nothing, And that's where it does kind of end up in my like previous mindset about it, where yeah, you get the followers, but they start to trickle off because there's nothing there for them to like latch onto.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I think some things to remember when you're trying to go viral. Or honestly, like a better way to put this might be like some things to forget when you're trying to go viral. Because a lot of this is pretty specific to businesses, but I guess it could apply to influencers too. A lot of times you hear people talk about content pillars and blah, 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 and all of that, and who's your target audience and everything like that, right? We talk about it too. It is important to know who you're trying to target, what your ideal audience resonates with, but in trying to go viral, you have to let go of that a little bit. You have to scale back a little bit. And the way that I like to think about it is when you are making this top of the funnel content, it's really like casting a very wide net, right? You are really targeting anyone. It's usually going to be something that's pretty generic, that is pretty, just resonates with a large
A
group of
lot of
people.
people, yeah. For
Your
sure.
ideal audience should definitely be in that group of people, but it's
Mhm.
maybe not only for those people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for us, like we might be making content for business owners, right? But lately I've been making some content that's just like corporate America, which
Yeah.
is a huge amount of people, right? And so
Rather
the
than
idea is
just
that
yeah.
yeah, the idea is then that like those business owners or the marketing managers that we are trying to reach they are in that group of people, right? Or sometimes I'm making like really generic content of anyone in the workforce, right? Like that's how generic I'm talking. Just anyone in the workforce.
Yeah.
And then like I said, our ideal audience is in there. right? So, and I'm not saying all of this top of the funnel content needs to be like that, because honestly, sometimes the really, really niche content can also go viral. And sometimes it's because you think it's really niche, and then it ends up being one of those situations where it's like, oh, I've never had an original experience before in my life because everybody appears to be doing this. But for the most part, it's like just dropping, the need to reach a very specific audience. And the same thing, like forgetting the rules you have. We hear this a lot with clients, is that these brands will say, oh, that's like really not, like, we don't want to be silly online, or that doesn't really align with our brand, or blah blah blah. And I understand that to an extent. If you're a luxury brand, maybe like running your TikTok page like Duolingo is not going to align with you, but there definitely are ways to go viral and to kind of like do that top of the funnel content without completely losing your brand identity. But I do think like loosen up on it a little bit.
Yeah. Pull back a little
And
bit.
I think when I say that, like when people think about top of the funnel viral content, they usually think funny. It doesn't always have to be funny, which we will get into, which is why I'm saying if you're a luxury brand, maybe the funny trending sounds aren't it for you, but there's definitely other ways where you can reach a broader amount of people and can loosen up a little bit.
Yeah.
I also think one of the last things you need to remember when you're making this content is this content is hardly ever going to increase your sales significantly. That's not what it's made for. So, and when I say that, I also mean like don't try and push your product or your service in these videos. Your product or your service should actually be quite far away from this video. Like it might be your product is in frame. That's it. Or maybe you're filming in your office or in your or like your we've seen before, like people will have their brand on a phone case, right? And it'll just have like the logo somewhere on screen. So it's the awareness aspect of things, but hardly ever are you seeing buy our product. This is how our product can help you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like even thinking back to Duolingo, like how often are they actually talking about their product or their service?
Not very often.
I would say never. like I will say it's different because they are kind of a household name. Like most people know who Duolingo is, so they don't necessarily need to push it as much. And their probably main goal in general is to get in front of people and to have people like remember them. But they're not talking about, and that's the reason that they have so much like viral content. You know what I mean? Because they're not like, oh, here's how our app can help you.
Yeah, they want you to discover it on your own.
Yeah, like kind of let go of the need to sell and for the need for this to be like an advertisement for your product, because that's probably not going to work. That's probably the biggest thing that I think you need to remember when making this content. And like great examples of this are even in the Super Bowl commercials that we just saw, like the Christopher Walken one. There was really at no point from memory, like I haven't seen it since the Super Bowl, but from memory, BMW was not like, this is our amazing car. Let us show you all of the different features that this car has. It was about Christopher Walken. And it was more like, this is a funny commercial, and it just happens to be associated with BMW.
And you've remembered the name and attached and only seen it one time.
Exactly. Exactly. Same with like the E-Trade commercials, another good example. It's talking babies. No idea what they said. Honestly, don't even really know what E-Trade is. But I remember the commercial by that association, but they're not telling me, oh, these are all the great things about E-Trade.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're getting into the actual tips. You guys are like, finally, oh my God, you've spent 15 minutes just talking. Okay. So some things that you need to think about, some tips on how to actually go viral. Make content that's appealing to a very wide audience, which is kind of what we were just talking about. Think about it as casting a very wide net, and think about it as like, what's a problem that a ton of people have? right? What's something that a ton of people deal with, not just your target audience? So there's an example from, I saw this, I don't even know, I think the brand was like a canned espresso martini. And the video was girls, or no, it was like a hangover recovery or something. It was some, or like an electrolyte, I think. And the whole video was a group of girls like hungover from night before outfits, like walking into Starbucks. And it wasn't like a produced situation. It literally looked like some college girl filmed this for herself. And I think like one of them like either had it in their hand, or I honestly don't even know if the product was in the video at all. But it's one of those things where anybody who has ever had too much to drink can relate to that, you know? Especially, I think they did a good job. I wish I remembered the name of the company. I could go back and find it, but I won't. But they did so good because they even, like I said, anyone who's had too much to drink. But I do think they got a little bit specific with the fact that it was like these college age girls, right? Then they were able to get a little bit more specific, you know?
Yeah.
So just like I said, casting that wide net, or like I used our example of like, I've been making more content about screen time. Anyone with a phone can relate to having their screen time too high. It's not just related to people who work in social media or who are business people. It's anyone.
We just have
But that's going to get people to our page. Yeah, we just have an excuse. So that's, I think, one thing is just think about common problems. Like, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky. We've been talking about this just internally a lot recently. You have to, in order to make content like this, you have to be able to pull yourself out of kind of the tunnel vision that is your brand or your client's brand. You have to be able to scale back enough to be like, okay, this is very vaguely associated with the problem of our client or the problem of our audience or whatever. And we need to scale back enough to make this just like a general video. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So that's the first thing. 2, trending content, like really work on the trending content. And I do want to specify here that I don't necessarily just mean trending sounds, although those do fall under this category. I also mean just like trends that are going on. What's happening within the zeitgeist? What are people talking about? I think like a good example is the 2024 ins and outs at the very beginning of the year that was going on. Or even like the Hailey Bieber Rode phone case, right? That was big. That was like a trend. Or the even like new celebrity couples are great. That's in the zeitgeist. That's like something that's kind of buzzy and trending. Like the Taylor and Travis. That's why you saw every possible company under the sun make a meme of Taylor and Travis.
Yeah.
You know? And then you can combine this with that first tip of like sometimes people get really, really specific with these memes. And that's why the brand like Sunday Scaries does really well with these memes because they're so general. And it's like, it'll be something of like me and then like something in the background. It'll be like my inbox with 500 unread emails. Anyone with an email relates to that. You know what I mean? So they're able to do both. They're able to use something that's popular in the zeitgeist, something that's trending, and zoom out. And that's what makes these memes do really well. And what makes them shareable too, right? Because people are wanting to share it with their friends. They know a lot of people who deal with this.
Yeah.
So even thinking about like, this is such a random one that's kind of trending right now, Miss Peaches and Dave Portnoy. Like, if you've been on TikTok, you've probably seen a video of Miss Peaches. Like this dog has reached 200,000 followers in about 4 days because that's all. In any video Dave Portnoy is posting right now, all of the comments are, excuse me, who is this man on the Miss Peaches account? And it's like it's his, like just things like that. That's also what I mean by trending. Things that people are already talking about.
Yeah. And it gets them
Okay.
talking and helps, like in comments. I feel like that's where a lot of the virality is built, is in comments. You know, when you can
Yeah.
build content.
Okay.
Is it
I'm
coming
glad
up?
you said that.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's kind of the next one is controversy and polarizing content. That always does really well too for that exact reason. Because if you say something that people do not agree with, or they do agree with, they are
Gonna take
more
it.
compelled to comment and tell you what their opinion is, which, like you said, when there is that engagement and when more people are talking, it's going to push the video out more, right? And this is where I wanted to like kind of follow up with the luxury brand example. So let's say you're that luxury brand, you don't want to do like pop culture stuff, you don't want to do the funny trends. This would be a good place for you to talk about whatever it
Yeah.
is to make that top of the funnel content. Maybe it's, I don't know, sometimes with luxury brands I feel like finances are kind of a controversy, if you will. Not necessarily talking about how much people are bringing in, but like the controversy could be as much as like it's this is just off the top of my head, but like it's better to spend more money on one pair of jeans than like spend $20
Yeah.
on a pair of jeans that's gonna like break or something like that. Like that could be quote unquote controversial because I can guarantee if you said that with the key is you have to say it in a compelling way. You have to say it like you believe this in your core. But I can guarantee if you posted a video like that, there would be people in the comments that are holier than thou type of people that are like, well, some of us don't have the money.
Yeah.
And that's going to stir up the controversy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying like it doesn't have to be cancelable, like polarizing
Yeah.
things. Like
Yeah. That's
telling someone that they should spend $500 on one pair of jeans over $20 on a pair of jeans, it's controversial enough, but not cancelable. So
cancelable.
this is you got to kind of walk the line a little bit, but just saying something with enough oomph, if you will, enough belief and being like kind of matter of fact about your opinions will get people talking.
Yeah.
Next, I think storytelling. I think that's really the backbone of most social platforms. I would say I was going to say TikTok, but I think it actually is like
All of it.
every platform. And going back to that example of like, who the hell did I marry? Yeah, that's a 50-part story. Like, and that this lady, this random lady I'd never heard of before, she's at 2 million followers now.
I know. I know.
And like, because she was able to tell this story. Now, I will say with the storytelling, there is kind of a requirement for a hook. You have to get people pretty quickly.
Listen,
And the story has to be good. You have to be good at
what do you think that
storytelling.
made this? What do you think made her go viral? Was it was it the title itself? Like, who did I marry in this 50-part
It is
series?
kind of a compelling title. I haven't watched any of it. I've seen a few
Yeah.
people try and like recap it, but I haven't watched the original
Yeah. I
video.
just
I've
watched.
just seen like, yeah, I've seen a few like clips here and there. So I don't really know on this one specifically. The title is compelling. Like, who the hell did I marry? I saw that. I had no idea what it was about, right? And I just saw the title and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I was reading it as like almost a How I Met Your Mother situation of like, she has a contender of men and we're going to figure out which one she married.
Yeah.
But it was more apparently of a compulsive liar situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, just being able to story tell. And I think that could also mean like in a vlog situation. It doesn't necessarily have to mean sitting down and recounting an actual story. It just needs to have that like beginning, middle, and end, something for people to follow
Yeah.
to make them invested, you know? And a lot of times, I will say, a lot of times in the storytelling, there also needs to be some sort of like an emotional.
I was about to say that emotional thing because I think a lot of the stuff we've had go viral, like with client content, it's the stuff that's super emotional, right? Like
Yeah.
that triggers something in somebody, and
Yeah.
that's yeah, it causes that effect.
Even like we've talked about the smile reveals before, but I think that's a good, you wouldn't necessarily, if someone says storytelling, that probably wouldn't be your first thought. but I would consider those videos like storytelling type of videos, because in the 20-second clip, you're able to understand that this person didn't like their smile before, which you can, as a user or as an audience member, as a viewer, you're able to kind of be empathetic towards that. Whether it's your smile, there's something that everybody has something they don't like about themselves that makes them feel insecure, and they know what that feels like. So in seeing these videos, you're able to tell that A, this person didn't like their smile. You're able to B, tell that this definitely held them back in their life before. And now you're able to see how happy they are. And that's the beginning, middle, and end. Right. Yeah. And that's 20 seconds. And it's not like someone is voicing over. It's not like someone is talking. Sometimes, yeah, they're talking about it. But most of the time, there's no one's talking. Right. Most of the time, it's just
when they turn that, it's just like you see everything happen just in emotion.
Yeah.
You're their emotion.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy.
Exactly. So that's why I'm like, storytelling doesn't necessarily have to be like, first there was this and then there was this. And in the end, you know, it's not, it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to say that I've kind of noticed on our page is I've replaced saying we with saying I if I'm talking about something on our page, if I'm making like a trending type of video. So for example, I posted that video the other day where I said, the one that's like, what are you doing? Texting. Who are you texting? And the video was like me getting caught like Googling how to calculate an engagement rate after working in social media for 4 years was the gist of the video. But I said and the reason is I've seen a lot of discourse about this, and I actually would love to hear your opinion. The discourse, the conversation has been, people no longer want to follow brands. They're not really interested in following businesses. They want to follow people. So in doing that, like I've seen a lot of companies do this too, like whatever. It makes it feel a little bit more personal, like you're following a person versus following a brand.
That's a really good one.
So that's just some stuff that I've been doing. A lot of these aren't like either or. A lot of these can kind of be mixed together. Yeah. But I think those are all different ways that you can focus on going viral. But I think, like I said, the biggest thing is those expectations with going viral. What does that look like for you? Because like I said, if you're used to getting 200 or 200 views, and then you have a video get 5,000, that's not necessarily viral, but it's still very good, right? It's still a significant leap from where you were at before. So I think having those expectations of what is considered successful on this top of the funnel content is really important. I also think recognizing if you do go viral, having the expectation of these aren't necessarily all going to lead to conversions, and it also isn't all going to lead to followers for the next like month or two, right? So I think having those types of expectations are very important when you're creating this content.
Sidebar, speaking of expectations, do you think that the expectation should be to, when it comes to analytics, to keep in mind that if you do have some virality or you do have videos that do better than maybe they did the last month, that you are going to have a little bit of shift and you're going to be able to see that impact?
Absolutely. Like
we've got discouraged from that in the past, you know?
Yeah. Well, in an ideal world, you want to see your analytics stay in the green. You want to see them all. Yeah. You want to see it be like a linear trajectory up. And that's just not the case most of the time. Like you said, if you had a video go viral, and you know what? I do want to say this as well. Like, yes, there's thought. All of these tips, I think, are true. But I do think there's a little bit of luck that goes into going like viral, right? It's right place, right time.
Yeah.
And like I said, that doesn't negate everything we just talked about. But like I said, going viral is not nearly as like, I don't want to say common, but it's just not the same as it used to be. So that's why I'm saying I don't even know if I want to call these tips to going viral, but I think tips to getting more views, tips to like top of the funnel type of content. But there's a little bit of luck that goes into it. But going back to the analytics conversation, let's say you do have a video go super viral, right? You get like 15 million views on a video this month. The odds of that happening again next month to that extent, even if you have a video do 12 million, which is still amazing, your analytics are going to look like they're down, right? Even though 12 million is so good, but if you came from 15 million to 12 million, you're going to be in the red, quote unquote. Or same with, like, let's say you ran an influencer campaign last month. Your analytics, like your views are going to look huge, but because that campaign is no longer running this month, it's going to look like it's bad. But it's not bad. It's just because it's comparing itself to the last 30 days.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a good point. I think that when you do have that's why they're called vanity metrics too, right? Like they don't really they're important, but they're also not. Yeah. So I thought this was kind of important. These are all things that I think we've been talking about a lot recently, is how to create more top of the funnel content and kind of get more people to our pages and things like that. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. I also hope you guys enjoyed the episode with Roots Marketing. So far, I feel like we've gotten a pretty good response to it. I would also love to hear who you guys want to hear on the podcast. We actually do have a few exciting guests coming up. Yeah. We've got some exciting guests, but if there's anyone that you guys specifically want to hear from, would love if you DM us. I will say, like, some of you guys DM us to be on the podcast, which I appreciate. And we really like hear out all of the pitches. So like if that's you, or if you have a friend that you think would be a great guest, like let us know. DM us. We check them.
We do. That's a good point.
All right. Until then, would love it if you rate and reviewed, and we'll talk to you next week.
Talk next week. Bye.